In a world where communication is vital to personal and professional success, one of the most draining experiences can be arguing with someone committed to misunderstanding you. While disagreements are a normal part of life, there's something uniquely exhausting about engaging with people who seem intent on misinterpreting your words, intentions, or feelings. It's like running on a treadmill. You're expending loads of energy, but getting absolutely nowhere. Over time, I've realised that these types of arguments don't just leave me mentally exhausted, but also emotionally drained. And I've come to understand why people sometimes seem committed to misunderstanding others. In this video, we're looking at why people are committed to misunderstanding us. I'm Jo Banks. I've been a professional executive business coach for 16 years, and I'm sharing what I know. So let's dive straight in. The endless cycle of miscommunication. When you argue with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you, you find yourself stuck in a loop of constant clarification. It feels as though no matter how often you explain yourself, the message never truly lands. For instance, you may calmly present your perspective, but the other person responds as if they didn't hear what you said, or worse, as if they intentionally twist your words. This never-ending cycle of explanation and rebuttal consumes time and energy with little hope of resolution. The real frustration lies in the fact that you are not just explaining your point, you're explaining yourself over and over again. As you continue to clarify, you begin to realize that the effort is not about being understood, but rather about being listened to. When someone is committed to misunderstanding you, it feels like they aren't actually interested in what you're saying, but rather in perpetuating an argument that suits their own narrative and agenda. Emotional exhaustion, the hidden cost. One of the most damaging aspects of arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you is the emotional toll it takes. Every time you attempt to articulate your thoughts and feelings, only to be misrepresented or ignored, your sense of self becomes chipped away. This ongoing miscommunication can leave you feeling invalidated and dismissed. For example, if you're in a heated conversation and your points are being misinterpreted in a way that makes you seem unreasonable or illogical, it can evoke feelings of frustration and helplessness. You might even begin questioning your own communication abilities or wondering if you're simply too sensitive. But the truth is, this isn't a reflection of your inadequacy. It's a sign that the person you're engaging with is either unwilling or incapable of understanding you, and that can be profoundly draining. Why people are committed to misunderstanding others. Understanding why some people are committed to misunderstanding others can shed light on how to navigate these types of interactions. While there are several reasons behind this behaviour, here are some of the most common. Number one, defensiveness and protecting ego. At the heart of many misunderstandings is a person's need to protect their ego. Some individuals fear that admitting they don't understand or that they might be wrong will undermine their self-image. And a lot of that goes on in the subconscious. In such cases, they may distort or twist what you're saying to avoid acknowledging their own limitations. If they feel cornered or threatened by your perspective, they may purposefully misunderstand to maintain their position of control and power, if only in their own mind. For example, if someone feels insecure about their knowledge or position on a topic, they might misinterpret your valid points to preserve their own sense of superiority. The need to be right becomes more important than truly understanding the issue at hand. In these situations, any effort you make to clarify your stance is seen as an attack on their sense of self. It becomes their identity. Number two, cognitive bias and filtered perception. Another reason why people commit to misunderstanding others is cognitive bias. Our brains naturally filter out information based on our pre-existing beliefs, assumptions, and experiences. This is called confirmation bias. People with strong opinions may selectively interpret information in a way that supports their own viewpoint and ignore evidence that contradicts it. When you express a differing opinion, they may hear your words, but their interpretation will be filtered through their bias, distorting the meaning of what you've said. For instance, if someone has a deeply ingrained belief about a topic, let's say politics, religion, or social issues, they may be so attached to their own viewpoint that they hear anything that you said as a challenge to their beliefs. They might misunderstand your point, not because they didn't hear you, but because their filter prevents them from seeing your perspective objectively. Number 3, lack of empathy and emotional intelligence. A significant factor in why some people misunderstand others is a lack of empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. People who lack this ability, and there's a lot of people who lack this ability, may struggle to see beyond their own perspective and fail to connect with the emotions or the reasoning behind your words. As a result, they may misunderstand the intent behind what you're saying and instead respond in ways that don't align with your emotions or needs. If someone is dismissive of your feelings or unwilling to try and understand where you're coming from, it's often because they're unable to see things from your viewpoint. Without empathy, communication becomes a one-way street where the person is more focused on defending their own beliefs than understanding yours. Number 4, avoidance of conflict or responsibility. Some people are committed to misunderstanding others because it allows them to avoid conflict or responsibility. When they misunderstand your perspective, they don't have to confront the uncomfortable truths that you might be presenting. This can be particularly common in situations where someone might feel guilty, accountable, or responsible for a situation. Instead of fully acknowledging your point of view, they choose to misinterpret it so that they can avoid dealing with the consequences or the emotional discomfort associated with it. For example, in a workplace disagreement, someone might misinterpret your constructive feedback in a way that paints you as overly critical, allowing them to deflect responsibility for the issue. By avoiding the core conversation, they maintain their comfort zone without having to change or accept responsibility. Number 5, desire to control or manipulate the conversation. Finally, some individuals intentionally misinterpret or misunderstand others as a way to control or manipulate the conversation. By misrepresenting your words, they can steer the discussion in a direction that suits their agenda. This tactic is particularly prevalent in power struggles or situations where someone has a vested interest in winning rather than resolving the conversation. When someone deliberately misinterprets your words, they may be doing so to create confusion or misdirect the conversation. In these instances, you may feel like you're arguing with a moving target, where every attempt to clarify your point is met with more misinterpretation, leading to an endless back and forth that leaves you feeling powerless. The fruitlessness of engaging. When you engage with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you, you're not having a conversation. You're participating in a game where the rules are constantly shifting. As your frustration builds, so does the sense that nothing you say will ever matter. And that's when it becomes clear you're arguing for the sake of arguing, not for resolution or mutual understanding. As someone who values honest, direct communication, I've come to realize that arguing with people who refuse to truly listen to me is not productive. It's draining both mentally and emotionally. When someone is more committed to misunderstanding than understanding you, the conversation becomes a toxic cycle with no resolution. It isn't about being right, it's about respect and the willingness to see the world through someone else's eyes. Without that openness, communication is not a dialogue, but it's a battle. The power of walking away. One of the most important lessons I've learned is when to walk away. When it becomes apparent that the person you're engaging with is not interested in listening, continuing the argument only wastes your time, energy, and emotions. Walking away isn't about avoiding the conversation. It's about recognizing when an argument has become fruitless and choosing to protect your own peace of mind. You don't owe anyone an explanation, especially if they're not open to hearing it. Furthermore, walking away doesn't necessarily mean getting up and physically walking away. It can mean refusing to engage further. At the end of the day, communication is a two-way street. If the other person is committed to misunderstanding you, no amount of clarification or persuasion will change that. It's better to focus on conversations where both parties are committed to understanding and respect. After all, life is too short to argue with people who truly aren't listening. The wrap-up. Arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you is exhausting, frustrating, and often a fruitless endeavour. It drains your energy, it chips away your emotional well-being, and rarely leads to any meaningful resolution. Whether their misunderstanding stems from defensiveness, cognitive bias, lack of empathy, avoidance, or a desire to manipulate, the result is the same. You end up stuck in an endless loop of explanations that fall on deaf ears. Recognizing this pattern has been a game changer for me. I've learned that not every argument is worth my time, and not every misunderstanding is my responsibility to fix. Instead of engaging in battles that go nowhere, I now prioritize conversations where there is mutual respect and a genuine willingness to listen. At the end of the day, life's too short to waste it on people who refuse to see beyond their own narratives. Choosing to disengage isn't weakness, it's self-respect. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away or refuse to engage. Preserve your energy and invest in relationships where understanding is a two-way street. What next? If you have anything you'd like to add to today's video, or you have any topics you'd like me to cover in future, please leave it in the comments section below. I read and respond to everything and really love interacting with you all. If you enjoyed this video, please support the channel with a like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. Finally, thank you to everybody who stays until the very end, and thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me.